So Pallavi, are you ready? We are ready,
Uh,
or we still
Sir,
require some?
5 more minutes because we
Okay,
are
okay,
going live at 5 sharp.
okay, fine. No
Five
issue,
more minutes I'll take.
no
Right,
issue,
sir.
no issue, no issue.
Sudarshan, would you like to tell anything regarding the event to serve? So you can please.
Yeah. So I'm just taking care of this live thing. Okay, that is the thing I couldn't communicate with you. And I have also joined in my profile, and also I have joined in this live sharing profile. So
Right.
first of all, I like to welcome you down here, sir, for taking your time to come and being here is all. I mean, you being here is our privilege, and we have been closely following. Just a minute, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Hello, is my audio clear?
Yes,
yeah,
we
yeah,
can.
Yeah.
sure, sure. You can
We
go
have
ahead. Yeah,
been closely following your works, like in LinkedIn page, and the kind of inputs you are giving, like what you are doing in the industry of education is remarkable. So that is one thing I want to tell you. And apart from this thing regarding TikTok, so as you know, uLektz is a learning solutions. We have been providing this LMS and other kind of solutions all over the world. And this initiative is to bring all the like-minded people, the greatest minds in the education industry who really are contributing to the society by educating the young minds in this country. So we had this privilege to invite you down here today also. So that is all about Ed Talk, and I'm really glad that you are here. And also we'll be doing a lot of things together henceforth,
yes,
hopefully.
yeah.
And I should also thank Pallavi for introducing you to us and the other respective team members, because you have also been a Wall of Fame member. I mean, the uLektz Learning Solutions have recognized you as one of the top educators of this country.
Yeah.
And from that journey to here, you still want to be a part of this wonderful journey you are into. So that is from my, I mean, like opening things up. So Pallavi, I think it's going to
Yes,
be like
start.
yeah. So you can start with. So I'm also taking the thing live. So on my count. Okay. So when I tell three, you just start with the thing. Okay. We're going live. So thank you, sir. Yeah.
Thank you, thank
Thank
It's
you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
yeah. Three, two, one, and we are going live.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you being here this evening. Today, we are pleased to welcome Professor Amlan, a very special guest from University of Calcutta. He is a professor and director as well of A.K. Chaudhary School of IT in Calcutta University. Not only this, he has almost 20 years of rich experience in engineering and research department. He has many feathers in his cap via a recipient of prestigious award in his field, such as DST Postcard Fellowship Award, Indian National Science Academy Visiting Faculty Fellowship Award, JSPS Invitation Research Award, and Shiksha Ratan Award by West Bengal government, and many more. And today, He will be sharing his expert opinion on unsupervised computer vision, the current state of the art resources person. So here onwards, I request Professor Amlan to take over the session. And thank you everyone to be part of this session today. So sir, I request you to take over this session.
Okay, thank you, Pallavi, and thank to the uLektz team uh, for inviting me in this webinar. Uh, so, so the context of this webinar is something which is very new and which is upcoming. So I tried to place my content accordingly. And as we know that uh, we are working in the domain of machine learning and computer vision for a few years, and so I thought that I will uh, try to discuss some concepts from that particular domain. Uh, so let me start. So my slide is visible, right, Pallavi?
Right, sir. You are
Okay.
absolutely visible.
Okay, so great. So the title of my presentation is Unsupervised Computer Vision, and I will uh, try to discuss a few of the techniques which are very upcoming and which are very interesting, and the way we can use those techniques for very for various computer vision applications. So normally when we discuss about machine learning or deep learning, uh, we have a notion that the techniques are primarily supervised, but recently we have some very good ways to explore the data which is not labeled, right? And that's why I am focusing on that unsupervised uh, techniques of computer vision in my lecture. And again, thanks to the organizers for this talk, and I hope that the students, the professionals, and the faculty members of various institutes and organizations uh, will enjoy my lecture and will connect with the organization and me for planning anything in this direction in future. So let's get into this. What is computer vision? So computer vision is something where we try to imitate the vision sensing and processing, okay, in artificial systems. So we know that uh, the biological world or the biological objects have a great that means the gift of God. Okay, we have our biological senses for vision, and also we can understand, recognize, we distinguish, count, right, objects in a real scene. The challenge is that those tasks can be done by machines, right? And this is very much required in the present scenario because we are in the age where we are trying to achieve autonomous driving, right? We are in an age where we are trying to have the surveillance and security which are not by physical manned surveillance, but it is unmanned surveillance, right? And there are variety of applications, okay, like understanding images, understanding videos, trying to robotic vision. Uh, we have a lot of processing going on in the industry, which is completely automated based on a lot of the shapes and sizes of the objects. So what we require in those type of applications and use cases is that we need to have the sensors, okay, which is the first phase of the sensing device, which is the first phase of this entire computer machine vision uh, system, right? And then that is to be understood, right? That is to be understood in terms of the way the brain understands an image or a video, Okay, in the same way, the the image should be understood by my artificial system, which may be a computer, which may be a smart device, okay, which may be something like a robotic system, a robotic arm. So various ways of computing, but ultimately the image needs to be understood. The image or video needs to be understood, right? And then based on the understanding, based on the interpretation, the the next case is the action that needs to be done. So the entire domain of computer vision relies upon the the developing good acquisition techniques, right? Good data acquisition techniques in terms of image and video, and then how the analysis, okay, maybe the preliminary analysis and detailed analysis of those information, okay, to get the insight of that, and so that decisions can be taken. Now, one of the way in achieving this artificial vision or machine vision is supervised learning. So supervised learning is something where we have a lot of information about the objects what we have in our okay, as a data. So the database what I have, okay, is called a training data set, right? And that training data set is labeled. So it means that I have a complete information in the sense that if I am trying to find out or trying to develop an algorithm which can detect objects, okay, in an image, right? I will have the training data set, okay, which will label that, hey, this is a dog, this is a cat, this is a horse, this is a ball, right? This is a car, this is a house, this is a tree. So we have several data, okay, in terms of image items, and each image item has a label. So what we try to so the learning model is then tries to find out an hypothesis, okay, by which the label can be recognized, okay, from the data, okay, and we help them to do this recognition because already we give a good amount of data where labels are already present, right? This can be objects, this can be handwritten uh, digits or handwritten texts, okay, images of handwritten digits or handwritten text. This can be objects in the video, many forms. So the good point of these techniques is that means you can get a pretty good accuracy, right? Because you are actually using a so the term supervised means that you have a supervisor. Okay, so what is a supervisor? Supervisor means that we know that a student comes to the teacher, and teacher is a supervisor of the student. The teacher comes with a knowledge. Students tries to generate his or her knowledge with the support of the knowledge which is being provided by the teacher. That is the role of a supervisor in the generic sense in our world. Similarly, supervised learning is also a similar thing. So we have a knowledge which is being well annotated, which has been well labeled, right? And then I try to develop the knowledge in my artificial system, okay, by learning, okay, through a learning process, right? And that learning process will imbibe, okay, that learning process will imbibe the knowledge or transfer the knowledge, okay, which was represented, right, in the training data set, right? And it will try to make the model better and better, okay, once we use the better training data set. So this is also another factor in the machine learning models where we need to that if we can provide a better training data set, which means a training data set which is very accurate and which is quite large, so that it can uh, okay, cover the domain best, right? Uh, then that particular training data set can generate good models. But the difficult part of it is that, okay, in many of the real applications, you don't get the label data. Suppose we all know that medical image diagnosis to computer-aided techniques, understanding objects in the real scenes, right? There are so many varieties of this, right? And in case of the problems in medical image analysis, there are new type of diseases are being there, right? We know the COVID chest CT images, right? We just found out that, okay, these are the chest CT patterns for COVID images and COVID patients, and then we have to work on that. So either the data has emerged very new, or the data is so vast, okay, that it is not possible to get the level of the data. And then what we can't do is that we can't train our machines in the supervised learning mode, because the data is not labeled. So what's the other strategy? Okay, the other strategy is unsupervised learning, right? So what that does mean? So unsupervised learning means that, okay, we have good amount of data, but the data is not labeled, the data is not categorized. So what we need to understand that, hey, can we find some discriminators, okay, or can we associate the data? So either if I randomly take two data, okay, from my data source, either we can associate the two data, okay, or we can discriminate the two data. So this technique is called clustering technique, right? And what I show here is what we do in clustering. So in clustering, what we do, we try to, from the data, from the initial source of the data, we try to find the groups in the data, right, and try to find the partitions between the groups, right? And each of these groups, okay, each of the elements within the group, suppose this element and this element of this group, okay, are pretty similar to each other in the feature space. So this is pretty important, that what we mean similar to each other means. So similar to each other means similar to each other in the feature space, right? And okay, that means, and if they're similar to each other in the feature space, then these two data elements can be the part of the same cluster. Vis-a-vis a data element this, a data element this are very far apart in the feature space. So they form the part of two different clusters. And this can go on and go on. We can have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 clusters and many more clusters in the data set. Now, how the clustering helps? The clustering helps us to identify that which data elements are similar, which data elements are non-similar. Suppose I'm giving you an image, right? I'm trying to find cluster, right? You can try to, you can cluster the humans, right? You can cluster the cars, right? You can cluster the buildings, okay? And once you actually find these clusters, okay, you can tell that, hey, this is a different object, okay? Human is a different object than a car, and a car is a different object than a building, because they belong to different clusters. And the next step, what you can do, you can now inspect each of the clusters, right? And you can try to find out the patterns of the clusters, and then you can identify what the clusters actually mean, and then you can actually go to labeling of the data also. So this is a process what is being done in the unsupervised learning. And now in the case of unsupervised learning, the feature space is pretty important. That's why there are some techniques like PCA, principal component analysis, which is being done, okay, on the feature space, okay, initially, right? And there is a feature transformation. Why? Because the feature values what we get initially might not be well visualized, okay, or might not be uh, uh, okay, used in that way so that we can have good clusters. But if we use some of the feature transformations using the PCA, and also we try to find out that what are the best feature accesses of the data by the PCA, then the plot of the data, right, on that particular feature space, right, which is being generated by the principal component analysis, can give you very good clusters compared to the okay, to the initial feature space. So dimensional reduction, uh, feature learning, density estimation, these are all good techniques which can be done so that you can achieve good clusters. When we tell good clusters, what that it means that the data points which are similar to each other, okay, should have should be very close to one another in the cluster. So which means that intra-cluster distances, so the separation between this point, okay, and this point should be as close as possible, and the separation between the mean of this cluster and the mean of this cluster should be as far as possible. So this is called inter-cluster separation and intra-cluster separation. So the inter-cluster distances should be small and inter-cluster distances should be large, so that you can accommodate, so that you can if the inter-cluster distance is too large, then we have a good amount of uh, uh, okay uh, budget, so that if my data point is still a little bit far from the mean, like here or here or here or here, I can still accommodate this in this cluster, right? Okay, so that helps us to aggregating the data, okay, in a better way in the clusters what I have already generated. So those are some of the preliminary things of machine learning. Uh, those I think many of the participants are well aware. Okay, I just tried to try to stress on this too, because this forms the premise of my today's lecture. Okay. 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 So that's what I have already discussed, that this is something supervised and unsupervised learning. Supervised learning means that we have data and its label. Unsupervised learning means you have good amount of data but doesn't have no labels. Uh, the training in the case of unsupervised learning is a bit that means you have to just form clusters, right? You don't have to find out, you don't have the class labels, so you don't have to find that whether okay, the accuracy in terms of the labels which is already there. So in some case you can converge unsupervised learning at a faster rate compared to supervised learning, and that's why it's called cheaper in some sense. The other way of unsupervised learning, the other very fundamental fact or importance for unsupervised learning, which we will try to discuss more in today's talk, is that it tries to uncover the underlying information. Because as you don't have the so sometimes we teachers, we tell the students that I will not help you, right? You do experiment on your own. But why we tell this? Because we try to make the student understand, okay, by the process of doing it properly or not doing it properly, to understand that what are the things to be done there. So this is called exploration of the data. So unsupervised learning actually does in that way. So unsupervised learning helps you to explore the data, okay, to to get into its feature space, right? To know that, okay, how the data maps to the feature space, right? Construct the feature space and map the data to the feature space, and that helps. Okay, that helps to understand lot of the properties or parameters of the data, right? And that is also one of the good points of unsupervised learning. Okay, so sometimes we tell that students learn better, okay, if he or she does on its own, right? And that's okay, and that's a very similar thing what is done in unsupervised learning also. Now, the context of today's lecture, okay, will be mostly unsupervised learning in the era of deep learning, because I am trying to discuss something which is state of the art. So I'm trying to discuss the computer vision, the unsupervised learning in the computer vision, but in the deep learning setup, right? And so I give a little bit, okay, overview of what is deep learning. So so traditional machine learning, right, which is basically the classifiers like tree classifiers, like the naive-based, the very basic classifiers, or the SVM classifiers, right, or the neural net classifiers. These are called traditional machine learning classifiers, or we can have a clustering like K-means clustering. These techniques relies on exploration of the feature, okay, as a step one, right, and then actually going for the inference, okay, in terms of prediction, okay, or classification, okay, or clustering, okay, okay, as association as a step two activity. Now, in the case of deep learning, what happens is that in the deep learning, it is a deep in two respect. One respect is that though it is fundamentally a neural network, but the neural network model is pretty deep, which means that it has good number of hidden layers, right? And what the layers does, the layers actually construct from the fundamental, from a very preliminary feature space to a very high order feature space. Okay. For example, okay, in an image, right? The basic, okay, if we try to search the neighbors, right, you can get the edges, okay, because the neighbors where the derivative is high, right, you can tell it's an edge, okay, edge information, but the derivative is low, it's a background information. Okay. So the edge can be a very preliminary feature, right? But once we try to work out in the next order, we can try to find out that the edges which are there in my image, can they construct any particular region information, whether the edges are, okay, the edges of the lips, or edges of my eyes, or the edges of my nose, right? And then I go into some higher, okay, the next order of okay, of features, where I tell that, hey, okay, in this region, can I find the regions like ear, eyes, nose, lips, something like that? Okay, and if I get that, then I infer that, hey, this is the face information. So this is the way how the feature space builds up, right, in the deep learning context, and that is exactly similar to the way the different functional regions of our brain works. The different functional regions of our brain tries to abstract, okay, different feature orders, or different okay, feature abstractions, right? And the abstraction goes on from a very simple level of abstractions to a very complex level of abstractions in a stage-wise manner. And these stages are, okay, are imitated, or we try to do a deep network type of architecture, okay, where we try to put this layers of neurons, right, which goes in a stacked up manner, right, and try to generate the same procedure which our brain works. So though deep network utilizes the basic principles of a neural network, which is nothing but an artificial model of a biological neuron, but it goes in a different way, right, compared to the neural network what we normally have in the classical machine learning concept. Okay, so this deep network actually helps us to get a better insight of very complex information, so very complex features, okay, and take a decision based on the understanding of those complex features. So in a nutshell, the understanding of the feature, which is called representation learning, right, and the inference, which is either classification or prediction, okay, works as a single seamless unit, right, in the case of deep network, unlikely to the machine learning, the traditional machine learning models, where we have the feature exploration as a different phase or a distinct phase prior to the classification or prediction. So this is what is deep network and deep learning. And the limitation of time, I'm not getting into that in details. Okay. Now what I try to, so this is what is, as I discussed, that it goes into multiple layers of abstractions. Okay, very similar to the multiple zones, functional regions of the brain. Okay, as they tries to get into different abstractions of the same information, right? And based on that, we can identify objects. We can classify objects. We can understand the different type of complex patterns within the image and video information. Okay. So as I explained, it's from edges to regions, and regions to the interface object, right? We can go in the deep learning way. Provided we have a knowledge on deep learning, what I try to now focus is a very upcoming concept, okay, which is unsupervised deep learning, right? And that is the state of the art in terms of computer vision. Okay. So at first, I will try to discuss about generative modeling in a generic setting, right? And then I will get into the distinct ways, right, how the unsupervised learning, okay, based on generative modeling happens in the computer vision domain. So now this is a question to the audience, right? So these are the faces, what I am showing to all of you. And I just want to ask you that, can you tell me that which face is real? Okay. So the answer is that neither of the faces are real. Okay. All the faces are fake faces. Okay. This is an important context in the present scenario of our visual communication or visual interpretation. So we know that in the domain of visual communication and visual interpretation, a lot of fake informations are being produced, right? And this is just an eye opener to all of you that, yeah, we can do it, and that is called generative modeling. So generative modeling is something, okay, which, let's skip this. Okay, generative modeling is something which tries to understand, okay, which does a density estimation, okay, of your data. What is the density estimation? Density estimation means that you can just take this, okay, you can just take this as a histogram also, right? This particular plot in, okay, here, right? You can take this as a histogram also. But what it tells that the samples which came in the pixels, right, in a maybe in a one-dimensional okay, plot, right? And these are the intensity of the of the corresponding pixel. So it, it's actually in a generic setting. Like what we normally have, we normally tell that that a histogram is something where we have the intensities in this direction, right? A number of pixels in this direction. Okay, but when we tell it in the density estimation domain, what we try to do, we try to find out that, hey, these are the, so this is the feature, right? This is some feature. Okay, I'm not telling what feature it is. This is some feature, right? And these are the samples. Okay, so some samples are within the feature value of this, some samples are within the feature value of this. Okay, so for a particular feature, the samples are distributed in the feature space. Now, if we know this distribution, first of all, I know a great details about the object. Secondly, I can generate different objects with this as a seed, because what I do, okay, I can modulate the distribution a bit, so that this distribution is modulated, suppose like this. Okay, and I come with a different object, so I can modulate the distribution and I can create new samples. So the first thing is that from the data, from the information given to me, from the object information given to me, whether I can understand the distribution, right? And I can generate a generative model which can generate the same distribution and can generate very similar objects. Though the initial one was a real object, okay, and the other versions are different. Okay, that means are generated from that object. The second case is the sample generation, which means that I can modulate this a bit. I can modulate the distribution of the pixels in the intensity axis or in the frequency axis, and I can create a different object, different image itself, right? And that is called the generation. So it can be used for two purposes. Purpose one is to understand the distribution of the information in the data in the feature space, and then modulate that a bit and can try to generate some new information. Okay. So what are the applications? The applications are, it is called debiasing. Okay. Debiasing is something which tells us that when you have a set of image collected, okay, it's from real scenes, many of the times, okay, the images, okay, are very much skewed in the sense that they represent only a particular group of people, okay, or represent a particular ethnicity of the people, right? But what we need to, or a particular shape and size of the object. I mean, if we don't go with the people, it will be, okay, the objects. So what I can do in the generative modeling is that we can understand the distribution, right? And understanding distribution, we can try to understand modulate the distribution, okay, in the various zones, right? And we can cover each zone of information so that there is no biasing. So initial information may be very skewed. But when I use this and we generate the new information so that we can have a homogeneous distribution, that I can do using the generative models. Okay. This can also be used for outlier detectors, because as we can understand the pattern of the information, okay, by understanding the model, okay, I know that the regular pattern has an information spread, okay, or the variance are well measured. Now, when we find that the information has a variance, right, greater than what we have, right, or the information are generated in some zones of the distribution only, or not in other zones, or some new zone of, okay, a new zone in the distribution has occurred, okay, or some new the distribution apparently changes, okay, in a particular zone, then I can detect that there are outliers in my information. So there are these informations are not very common information. So by this, so by understanding the distribution, right, and detecting the outliers in the detecting the the distribution change, okay, in a different way, different aspect, right, we can also detect the outliers in the outliers in my data, and these outliers are nothing but sudden changes in the environment, right, and that can be well used, okay, in the vision systems by trying to find what is, okay, okay, some abnormal happening in the scenes, right, or some very very different okay, appearance of objects in the scene, right, which gives me a clue that something is happening which is not normal. So these are this is another very way the generative models can help us. So when we try to discuss the generative model, what we need to do, we need to understand the feature space, okay, and the features very well, right, and how the feature space is constructed, okay, for the given data. Now, as it is not labeled, we have to follow an exploration process to understand the feature space. Provided we understand the feature space, then we can learn from the feature space, right, and then we can recognize a similar distribution in the feature space, a similar type of object, or a different distribution as in the feature space, a different type of object. But prior to going to that, we have to learn from the input that what is its feature space, okay, without any supervisors, in an unsupervised way. So this type of approach are, okay, is known as latent variable based models. I will soon explain what is latent variable, okay. But the major approach, there are two major approaches, okay, here. One is called the autoencoder type of approach, but another one is called the generative adversarial network, right? I will try to give you the brief introduction of both of these. So what is a latent variable? So this is an image which depicts a story, okay, story in some okay, maybe some historian prison, okay, some historical prison, okay. What's the story? The story is that the prisoners are in one side of the wall, right, and there are guards, prison guards, right, who are moving on the other side of the wall, okay. The prisoners cannot see the guards, right, and the guards also, okay. So now what happens is that the prisoners are carrying some objects with their hand, okay, that means with the in the sticks, right, and okay, there is some illumination. So the illumination gives a reflection here on the wall, right, and the prisoners sees them. So prisoners believe that these are the things which are moving, right? But actually, the things are being moved by some uh, some people who are doing this job. Okay, this is latent to this information is latent to these prisoners because they cannot observe or they cannot perceive them directly. So the issue is that many of the features what we perceive, right, are originated, okay, from some information which is apparently hidden to us. So can we explore those information? If we can explore this information, then the representation, because then I can generate all the representation by utilizing the small piece of information only. Okay, I don't need to have a very large feature space, okay, to represent my information. Okay, I can use a sort of seed information to or a seed feature, right, to generate all the features, okay, which are pretty apparent, right? And this scenario, okay, and this scenario is called latent variables. Okay, so I stop here, and I can expect a couple of questions from the audience if there is any, right? Okay, otherwise I will move to the next discussion. Right? I will continue my lecture for the next 10-15 minutes after this. So if there are any questions, participants,
From
yeah,
the
you can ask me.
please come across. I request all. So I have one question.
Sure.
So will you please tell me that how visual communication helps to grow business? Like if you want to give answer now also, that is fine.
Yeah, that's a very good question. See, it's a visual communication is something where we have a great belief, right? We believe in the okay in the okay in the visual communications because it reflects your emotions, right? That means it reflects your okay activity, right? How active you are, right? It reflects also a sort of coordination between your thought process, right, and what you are actually doing. So if your visual communication is weak, okay, so it means that your thought process and your coordination and your gesture, they are not connected, right, and you lack confidence. So we know that that was in the pandemic time also, right? People people have people uh, people have done meeting through the virtual meets. Okay, they could have done it only through the telephonic call, but still they prefer virtual meets. And many of the meetings, it is requested that all the participants should make their video on. Why? Because okay, this gives first of all, this gives a sort of feeling that you are connected to all of the others if it is a visual communication, right? And obviously it tries to get a reflection of the self-esteem, okay, with which uh, each of the participants are coming into the particular process of communication, right? And we have actually we have done a research project, I think 5-6 years ago. I graduated one PhD student, where we explored the learning behavior of the learners, okay, in terms of their gestures, right, in terms of their uh, facial facial emotions. Okay, and we have shown that really the feedback of the learner, okay, it's in other way, okay, and the feedback we get from only analyzing gestures and the facial expressions, right, are very similar. Okay, so this is, I think, well, um, uh, better defined by the psychologists also, because I have seen in many of the interviews I take for different occasions, I see the psychologists are also there, right, and they also observe the different parameters in terms of gestures, in terms of communication. That means the oral communication and the gestures and the facial expressions, and they try to make an assessment of the individual. So and also in the, okay, in the recent days, AI is being used. That is my domain of research is now used to classify this in the real time. That means, the proctored test which are happening in the virtual education platform. So the proctored test is one of the way where they are trying to get not only the visual gestures of the student who is giving the examination, but also the visual environment, to understand that whether it is that means whether the student is going through a normal process of writing the test, or the student is taking any sort of wrong means of writing the test. Yeah.
So, sir, this kind of software is work basically in FMCG sector. Kindly
Yeah.
saying FMGC required such software to get more feedback from of customers,
Yes.
like
Yes.
Big Bazaar and
Yes.
Lifestyle. And so they
Yes.
must be using such
Yes.
software.
Because whenever you're interacting with your customer, right, and as now physical interaction is not possible, right, when they're interacting with the customer, okay, it is always good to analyze the video communication in a better way, uh, so that we get the ultimate mood of the customer, whether the customer is happy with the conversation or not, because facial expressions, okay, expresses a lot, okay, about what is my personal feeling about the communication.
Right, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So if not, yeah, so if there are no questions, I can go to the next discussion, right, Pallavi?
Right,
Okay.
sir. Right.
Great. Yeah. Okay, so I stopped here. Okay, so now I will just keep a little bit on mathematical portions in depth, but this is just to tell you that what actually is autoencoder. So all of us know who has gone through any course of digital computer, the digital logic or computer science. They know that there is something called encoders. What encoders do, they try to make a representation, right, of the data. Right, we can represent our text using ASCII encoding. We can represent our image using the JPEG encoding. So all this encoding is nothing but a particular signature, what is being generated corresponding to a data. Now, in this case, in the deep networks, okay, we tell autoencoder is a sort of network, okay, which tries to generate, okay, a representation. Okay, so this is your input, okay, and then it is encoded. This is encoded to H. So this is the encoding part. Okay, this is the encoding cycle, and this encoding cycle is done in such a way that it preserves the important information of X, okay, and tries to lose away those informations which doesn't represent X in a strong way. So those are not latent variables. So the latent variables are preserved, which means that is this representation, this encoded representation H, right, is sufficient to use, okay, in the next process to build or to analyze the feature space, okay, of X. Okay, and the reverse path, and to prove that, the proof that, hey, that H is sufficient to represent X, we have a reverse process which is called a decoding. So this is the decoding process, right? This is the decoding process. Okay. The decoding process, what it does, okay, it actually generates R. And this R is very similar to X. So it means that H is sufficient to represent X, though H is much a compressed form, much a condensed form of X. Okay, so that's what is the beauty of your autoencoder. So you use your initial data pattern, okay, you try to generate a representation which is scaled down, much scaled down, and still it can represent well your data pattern, right? And you can go on using that into your feature space. What you do in a convolution neural network, in a deep network, you try to build the feature space, okay, one after another, okay, order 1, order 2, order 3, order 4. So this autoencoder can reduce the initial representation of the data to a minimum amount, and then you can save your convolution network effort by working on this minimum representation, okay, without affecting the latent information which we require to analyze it, right? And then you can after you have done that, right, you can again go back to the initial data space by using the decoder. Okay, so this is the similarity. So that is, so reconstruction versus simplicity. So the issue here is that means if we try to make it, the representation very simple, suppose now the question arises that, okay, if we compare between X and H, okay, H can be as complex as X, or H can be very simpler as that of X. And now if H closely resembles X, okay, that means it is not much deviated from X. Okay, then what it means that I can have a very simple conversion from H back to X. But if I want to make H very simple, a lot of the things are dropped off from X and to generate H, to go to H. Then from H to generating R, which is a similar representation of X, will be a pretty complex. So that's what is the trade-off. So how much you encode to make the representation, each encoding makes the representation simpler and simpler and simpler and compressed. But that will again have a higher complexity of reconstruction. So you need to have a trade-off that how much you go deep down in encoding, the more you go deep down in encoding, more effort you have to take in the decoding. Okay, so that's the scenario. So this is what is an autoencoding. Okay, so what it does, it takes a high dimensional feature space to a very low dimensional feature space, and this is very simple, very similar to the PCA, which we do in unsupervised learning in traditional machine learning. So we try to convert a high dimensional feature space to a very low dimensional feature space. So X to Z, okay? And then again I can tell that this Z works because anytime I can just take from Z, I can convert back to X. So now what I do is that means I don't actually do this decoder at a first shot, because if I do this decoder at a first shot, then my purpose is not solved. What I do, I use this Z, okay, in the next the next stages of the network. Okay, maybe a convolution network. Okay, okay, and we can just actually explode this Z. We can work with Z only, which is similar as that of working with the larger feature space X, because Z restores all the latent variables of X, and that's the way it works up. Okay, uh, so how you can test that, what is that how better is your encoding and decoding? You can just try to take a loss function, which is an X minus X cap. If your okay, encoding and decoding is perfect, your loss function will be 0. If your loss function evaluate to 0, but more higher and higher, you mean that it's a higher loss and higher loss. So you need to have a less deeper encoding, right, and less deeper decoding, right, if you find that your loss function increases very heavily, right? I will not go to this. The examples are something like this. Okay, so what do we have? These are the latent variables, right? Smile, skin tone, gender, beard, glasses, hair, tailor, all these latent variables, right? Right, and these latent variables are being only restored. The values of latent variables for this particular image is stored, and then we pass it to the decoder. The decoder generates a pretty same image. So what I am doing, I am not actually storing this information, these features. There's so many complex features in the image. I'm only storing these latent features of my image. And you see, if I pass it to the decoder can regenerate the same image. So that's what is the latent attributes role, right? You can have a very low dimensional representation of a very complex representation. So these are the ways we can actually try to find it out. Okay, so you have your X and represent. This is very similar to a neural network hidden layers, right? So we try to converge the input okay, features to a very narrowed down hidden features, latent value representation, and okay, and again you can come out with a decoder, a very similar outcome which was there in the input. Okay, how similar it is, it depends on the loss function what we evaluate. Okay, this can go on and go on. I'm not going into details of this. So this is some of examples that if this is your ground truth, I mean, this is your original data, ground truth original data, right? If you compress the space, you can easily find out the representation has a lot of errors. But if you don't compress the space much, okay, you can. So two-dimensional latent space means that you only have two features. So you reduce the features enormously, drastically in this example. But here you have preserved 5 features. So your feature space is a little bit okay, better, right? And so you have less error. So from this to this is a very highly compressed in the encoder, right? So decoder generates error. Here it is a trade-off. Okay, encoder has encoded up to certain level, and so when the decoder has generated this, and the decoder has found out a good, okay, that means a very close okay, a close approximation of the actual data. So this is what is there. Okay, so I'm not going details on this. Okay, now we can have a little bit trick here. Okay, instead of only working with the same data, with the same representation, if we can tweak the representation, right? And this is the other aspect of generative model that we generate. Okay, and this is called data augmentation, right? Or data debiasing. Okay, you have a okay, that means you have a distribution, and the distribution is biased. So can we just vary the distribution a bit so that you can have the data in all the, that means all the buckets are filled up. So this is called an this is called a variational autoencoder. What we do, we try to get a measure of the variations in the feature space, okay, with the mu and sigma, okay, with the mean and standard deviation, and then we try to make a probabilistic component, associate a probabilistic component with that, and try to put certain variations in the decoder. So So encoder generates Z, okay, and we try to estimate over a large number of data elements what is the mu and what is the sigma, okay, of this particular feature space, or for each feature vectors actually, what is the mu, what is the sigma, and then we try to modulate this in probabilistically, right? And this modulation generates a particular variation, okay, particular variation. So what do? We try to we provided so the encoder generates Z provided X is given, okay, right? And decoder computes X provided Z is given, right? But we can have certain variations. So the phi, so the function phi, which worked here, okay, we can change it a bit to theta, right? We can have a small variation, right? And this variation, I'm not going into details on this. So this variation, this is an example. So what it does is that, okay, so you see what happens here is that if we can only see the smile factor, right? If we can only see the smile, right? So the smile probability distribution for all these images, okay, are on different distributions. The smile distribution of this image is something like this. Smile distribution of this image is this. Okay, sorry. First of all, the smile distribution of this is here in the data. This is here, this is here, and this is here. Okay. So now what I do, okay, instead of making this, I just vary this. I just vary the distribution a bit. Okay, I vary the distribution a bit. Okay, I vary the distribution a bit here. Okay, like these examples, right? Okay, fine. And if we vary the distribution a bit, then I can have a sort of variations in my data. Okay, I will just show this. Okay, so what happened here is that you can just generate. Okay, this was your smile, skin, gender, okay, hair color variations, okay, data. So this is your data for this sample, right? And this is your data for this sample. So what do? You have a data here, now you shift it a bit here. Okay, so you have a data here, you shift it a bit here, you have a data here, shift a bit here. So you just do a shifting of distribution, and okay, and each shifting of distribution, okay, will generate a different value of encoder, right? And when they're decoded, okay, they have a different expressions and different variations. So these two images, that means in naked eye can seem very same, but these two images are different because I have varied the distribution. Okay, this is a different distribution of the latent variable. This is a different distribution of latent variables, and I can create number of this. So what I can do here is that I can take a particular pose of a particular person, okay, and I can generate all the poses. Okay, suppose I have a that means, okay, so the original pose of the person may be this, right? And then I modulate the distribution in terms of orientation, and then I can regenerate all these poses, right? And this is the because provided I can encode this properly, I can encode the distribution and understand distribution properly, then only I can modulate the distribution. Okay, and once I modulate the distribution, each instance of modulation, I will create a different pose. Okay, so this is the way I can regenerate the data. Okay, so you see that you can. This is called latent perturbation. So you try to regenerate. So what you vary here? You vary here two parameters. One is the smile parameter. One is the head pose parameter. So you first try to understand what is the smile distribution and what is the head distribution, right? And then you try to regenerate different samples in the smile axis and different samples in the head pose axis, and to generate so many information, so many images, right? So this is what is actually unsupervised. So you learned it in unsupervised way, okay, using the autoencoder, you're trying to collapse it to Latin variables. And then once you understand the Latin variable distribution, then you can tweak the distribution and you can generate, okay, you can regenerate the samples. That's what is so important. That's what I have already told about the debiasing. Okay, so I will not go into much details here. So you see that what I do, I just, okay, try to change the distribution and try to generate a lot of information. Okay, so the distribution which was uh, okay, here, okay, distribution which was here has been changed to this one, right? And that generated so this was a very skewed distribution because only we have, okay, information concentrated in this region of the feature space. But now I have made a distribution a bit flat, right? And then I generate the distribution across the entire feature space, right? And that's why I can remove the biasing which was there in my data. Okay, so now I go to the last part. I will just give a very quick of this. So this is something called generative adversarial networks, or GANs, which is also a very good way of exploring the data. What GANs do, GANs try to have two concurrent channels. Okay, one channel is coming from your real data. So this is coming from your real data, and this is generated. It can be initially it can be the noise only. So what it does, from the noise you just randomly generate something, right? And discriminator compares the generation of the generator vis-a-vis the original, right? And tries to find, hey, there is a large difference. If there is a large difference, okay, this information gets pushed to the generator, and the generator tries to work a bit more. And once the generator tries to work a bit more, what the generator is doing, the generator is actually coming closer and closer, because each time the discriminator tells that, hey, you are okay, your difference is pretty great, generator tries to work a bit more, right? And in this way it will try to generate a fake image or a fake data which is as close as the real, right? And this way what will happen is that you have known the entire reconstruction path of how from a seed noise you can generate a data which is pretty close to your actual data. By the way, you have known what is there in the data. So suppose I tell you that, hey, build a house using some stones and mud. Okay, so now if you build the house using stone and mud, ultimately, and in each step I tell, hey, it is not, the window is not okay, hey, the door is not okay, hey, the roof is not okay, right? And then you try to go on building an accurate way. What you have learned, you have actually learned that how the house was built actually. So this is the process called generative adversarial learning, by which you can actually try to compete with a real instance. A fake instance competes with the real instance, right? And in this process, the fake instance become very close to real instance. And in this process, you learn that what are the latent features, okay, in the real instance, right, which actually makes it different from the fake, right? And those are the very inherent features of the data. Okay, so this is a simulation. What is being done here is that means, so initially, okay, this is your generator. So these three are generators. So this is the generator data. These are the generator data, right? And this is the discriminator. This is the real data. Okay, so these are the fake and these are the real. But slowly and steadily, you see the generator comes close to the real data, right? And then you see that the generator distribution is pretty close as that of the real data, right? And that you want to know. That was your knowledge. That's the knowledge you gained, right? So that's all. I will not go into this much. So this is actually, that means a good amount of work is being done in the domain by various organized research labs and industries for different use cases to understanding the image information without getting any level. So this again the crux of the entire discussion, that without getting any information, okay, any prior information of the data given to you in form of image, how you can still explore the feature space, and you can categorize, or you can tell that, hey, this is similar to this, or this is not similar to this. Okay, and there are some very good okay, advanced processes like cycle GANs, where we take the discriminators and generators in two domains. Okay, this is a horse and this is a zebra, right? You take it from two domains. So there is a discriminator and generator which works in the horse, and discriminator and generator which works in the zebra, but they works independently, and they again connect with each other. By the process, what happens is the zebra discriminator runs about the horse, and horse discriminator runs about the zebra, and then what you can have a complete overlap. You can create an object which is a complete overlap of the horse and the zebra. This is a famous example which has been done by one of the research staff of MIT, where what he did is that he actually taken the spectrogram of Obama, right, and try to learn the spectrogram of Obama. That means, and try to find that what are the through a cycle GAN, right, and try to update the spectrogram of Amini, who is the faculty there. And then what happened is that whatever Amini is telling, right, it comes as the voice of Obama, right? And this is a very good example. And you can tell that this can be used for fake. And yeah, really there are people who are trying to do this for fake. But this is very interesting to understand that which is fake or which is not fake. That means, so if you understand this, you can easily identify the voice recognition very well. You can identify the video scenes, whether they're so it can be used for generation of fake. But rather, if you take it positively, okay, by this you can judge the authenticity of the sources. Okay, and that's all from my end. Okay, what I was trying to discuss to all of you. I have just these are some of the good references. Okay, you can go through who want to study this domain. And due to limitation of time, I have skipped a lot of the mathematical concepts. Some of the mathematical concepts I have tried to keep it more basics, and try to keep it more that is try to explain with more examples, so that you get the philosophy of the subject, and then you can learn it from any good references. Okay, so thank you all, and my lecture ends up. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for wonderful presentation and giving the expert opinion and insight of the topic. And I would like to request from the audience if anyone has any question to ask related to the topic, or definitely sir can give answer pertaining to the topic also, and outside of the topic somebody is willing to ask.
Yeah, I will be fine to answer the questions if there are any, either on the topic which I just discussed, or anything what you.
Yes. So first of all, I have to thank you for a brief lecture and how things are exactly happening in and around the society. So it was a very useful session, and even for someone from non-computer science background, so this one is like very encouraging, and we were really thinking like, okay, this was a very good profession to choose, and that is mean actually apart from the question, this will be a thank you note on my answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for giving your precious time to us and presenting this beautiful the topic with your PDF and your Excel sheet. So thank you so much, sir. Looking forward to meet you again.
Sure.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks for organizing this, and thanks goes to you for hosting me, and thanks to the uLektz.
It's an honor to have you here, sir.
Yeah, and I hope that we will have a very strong relation, okay, with your organization in the years to come. Yeah.
Right,
Thank
sir.
you.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being a very good presenter and as a guest. Thank you so much.